Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for making the time to attend our third day of training. Uh, we have, as always, a busy and packed schedule. So let's start with our first part for this training. We have with us this is kind of like the newest team in our ClickMe group, and we call it the metrics team. Because we really, this is like the science to the spirit, diba? We all have very good intentions. We all want to make sure that we help our target beneficiaries, who are the out of school youth and adults, no? But we want to make sure also that we really stick to the plan so that we can sustain this work, and that this will not just be a one-time thing for 10 communities. We want this for the first year, to be able to do it for 100 communities, and for the next 5 years, to reach 5 million out of school youth and adults that we will be educating. As you know, we launched earlier this week, and we're calling our campaign 5M in 5Y. 5 million educated poor Filipinos in 5 years. Okay? So yan ang ating lofty goal, but we believe with God's help, we will make it happen. We will be his instruments to make it happen. So our metrics team is composed of three dedicated individuals who are experts, quote unquote, no, in this. So they will handle this segment. So let me just introduce them before I turn you over to them. No, so the first one is my co-founder of KLIKme, si Pinky. Po, you heard her last week. Ang dami mong raving reviews, Pinky, last week. So anyway,
Ang dami ko na namang nabola.
I know, sabi ng isa, ang galing pala ni Pinky mag-talk, ganyan, ganyan. I go. So anyway, so Pinky, so she's been with us from the start in Geekonomics, and then with Click Me, we were the ones approached by Freddie, and yung nga, diba, at first ayaw namin, pero then we realized, no, we have to do it. Ganyan. So kanya-kanyang expertise. So she has been focusing on sustainability of social enterprises. As you know, she has her social enterprise accounting firm called At Iba Pa, ATBP, focusing talaga on providing back office business processing and accounting services, just primarily to social entrepreneurs, para nga to make sure they make money, because otherwise all that good work and intention na efforts will not be sustained kung hindi nila ino-observe yung mga dapat gawin, no? So Pinky has developed her expertise in that, not only because she's an accountant by profession, but she also took the master's program in Ateneo under Dr. Morato. So ina-apply niya ngayon. She wrote a book, 'di ba? How to make this, how to make, so that your business won't fail. Anong title ng book? So anyway, basta parang gano'n, no? So we have to send it to everybody. So maybe Mara can also provide copies of the book together with my book. Ayan, mamaya. So yeah, no? And then the other member of the team is Vicki Cabrera. Yeah, no relation. I know, actually relation pala, may relation. Third cousin siya ni Bong, no? So, but we just met. We just met last year, and I'm so blessed to have her. But she actually worked with Enchanted Farm many years ago, and she was part of the team that started the Seed School, yung school for entrepreneurial and experiential development. Anyway, she will tell you about it. But she has been studying positive psychology, organizational positive psychology, and her focus is really working with a lot of organizations, particularly social enterprises, to make sure that we achieve the impact, the social impact that we desire, that we set out to do. So she's part of the ClickMe team to make sure that we will accomplish our goals. And we put together this segment for them because it's very important for us as we get, into the operations, to always really be mindful of what our social impact should be and how will we measure it. Kasi nga, kung di natin siya ma-measure, hindi natin siya ma-gauge. No? Ano ba yung quote na yon, Pink? So anyway, what you can't measure, you can, ano? So anyway, they will
Mamaya,
explain
sa
that
spiel ko.
more. Oh, they'll explain that kasi nga it has to be incorporated in the everyday things that we do. And it is the key to our sustainability. Kasi while we have initial funders right now, if we are to scale in the millions, we will need major, major money. And for major, major money, they ask for measures, for social impact indicators of success. So kaya importante we have that. And Lisa then is the third member of that team kasi she's very good in that. Talagang documenting, writing, ganyan, making sure that we can present to future prospective funders. This is what we're doing. This is the impact we want, and this is what we're achieving. So very important yan. And we need you, our facilitators, to work with us to make it happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our metrics team, Pinky, Vicky, and Lisa.
Thank you. Vicky's going to go ahead. Go, Vix.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet all of you. And I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I'm going to start us off, and then Pinky is going to take over from there. Okay, can everyone see? It's a blank screen right now. But Okay, so today, as Rose mentioned, Pinky and I are going to talk to you a bit about the social impact of KLIKme and basically how we plan to measure that social impact. Because this will be an important part of the KLIKme program. Because it's really important for us to know, how will we exactly know if we're measuring our social impact? And the only way to know if we're achieving that social impact is really to be able to measure our success. So I'm going to just quickly walk you through sort of some of the planning that we did to try to define what is the impact that we're trying to achieve with KLIKme and for our learners, and how are we going to measure that impact? So the first step in, measuring or being able to measure the impact of KLIKme is to actually define specifically what are the outcomes that we're trying to help our learners to achieve. And we want to know what these outcomes are, not only in the longer term, but also in the shorter term as well. And these outcomes, it's really important that they're very specific and that they're things that we'll be able to measure so that we're able to track the impact that we have on the learners, both in the short term and the long term, to make sure that we're achieving our goal of helping them and empowering them through education and through employment. So what we did was, for KLIKme, we thought through, what are the specific outcomes that we're trying to help our learners to achieve. So I know that you've already attended 2 days of training and that you've already familiar with the overall vision for KLIKme, to help our learners be educated, as well as for them to be confident, to be financially sustainable over time. But what we did was we tried to kind of break that down into creating very specific outcomes. So we started with the long-term vision for the learners. So basically, in the long term, what we're trying to do is we want the learners to be capable, to be confident and self-reliant. And then how will we know if they're successful in terms of their financial sustainability or employability? Well, we thought that in the long term, that would mean that they have some kind of stable, permanent work or livelihood, whether they're an employee or an entrepreneur. And then also an important part for them as well is to be responsible citizens. So we wanted to get, again, more specific to talk about what exactly is a responsible citizen. So we thought that a responsible citizen is someone who's law-abiding, who's educated, and ideally is a voter and patriotic. So you can see here that we tried to come up with like very specific descriptions. And that way, this will help us to really think about how we're going to actually be able to measure that these things have actually happened. So that's in the longer term. And then we worked backwards from there. So in the longer term, in a number of years, if this is the outcome we want for our learners, what do we want to see in our learners in the shorter term and the medium term? So we worked backwards from there. So, we felt that, okay, if the ultimate goal is for them to be educated, what does that look like? So we figured, ideally after finishing the KLIKme program, it would be great if they can continue their education either through TESDA, through college, or some other micro degrees, and that they're also working towards or have obtained some kind of work or livelihood in the medium term, as well as being responsible citizens. So then we work backwards once again, and we try to think about, okay, if this is our longer term outcomes that we're trying to achieve for our learners, what needs to happen, immediately after they complete the program? Ideally, how will we know that they're on track to basically achieve that longer term goal? So in the short term, after they complete the KLIKme program, ideally, we want them to have some sort of support or mentorship. So ideally, they'll be talking to their GLX mentor on a regular basis. We also want to make sure that they feel confident, that they have the mindset that is empowered and confident in their ability to complete their education. So we want them to be motivated, to be hopeful towards achieving their education and work goals. And then, of course, a big goal is for them to pass the DepEd accreditation and equivalency test. We also want to make sure they're digitally literate, since that's a big focus of the curriculum, as well as ideally they've already started obtaining some sort of on-the-job training or internship that will help make them more employable in the future, as well as a first step towards becoming a responsible citizen would be register to vote. So as you can see here, basically we just try to come up with some very specific ways that we'll be able to know whether the KLIKme learners are, achieving the goal that we set out for them in terms of their education, in terms of their confidence, their mindset, as well as their employability, or whether they want to work for someone else or to become an entrepreneur themselves. So as a next step, so what we'll want to do is for each of these things that we have here, especially in the short term, this will be the most immediate priority after the KLIKme program. We need to basically collect metrics for each of these different outcomes. And this will be in the form of data, or perhaps we'll have to do some follow-up or ask the learners themselves and some tracking just to make sure that we've achieved the short-term outcomes immediately after the program. And then ideally, this will be the more challenging part. In the medium and longer term, it would be great if there were some way for us to track their long-term success. So this is actually where your roles as facilitators will be very critical. So right now, the metrics team, we're in the process of sort of figuring out the specific data and metrics that we want to collect from the learners and from you to be able to help us know whether they're achieving these learner outcomes. So for example, this may take the form of like a survey that we give the learners. We may also give surveys to the Kaibigan volunteers who are working with them, with their mentors. And we'll ask them questions about, how confident they feel, how hopeful they feel about their education. We may also need to work with you to find out whether the learners are, taking those next steps in terms of passing the DepEd equivalency test and other things like that. So this will be a critical part of really making sure that we are kind of tracking and achieving our social impact through KLIKme And if we're collecting this information along the way, this will also help us know whether we're on track and if we need to make any adjustments with the program or anything else. So this will be really critical, and your roles will be really, really critical in collecting this information. And this information, as Rose mentioned, will also be really important to collect because we have a number of different stakeholders who also want to know whether we are achieving our social impact or not, whether these learner outcomes are actually being achieved. So not only do we have internal stakeholders like the volunteers or the people who are working on KLIKme, we want to be able to know whether we are on track. But there are also funders and external partners who will want us and will be expecting us to demonstrate this impact to them. So this is another reason why it will be critical for us to be able to measure. And now I'm going to turn it over to Pinky to elaborate.
There you go.
Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah. Okay. So, Vex, you'll.
Oh, sorry, I
just
thought
stop.
here.
No problem. No worries. Yeah. So, hi. So normally out to in, but that one Vicky started first and she talked about learner outcomes kasi that's the most immediate. So now I will just take a little step back and show a whole parang picture of why impact needs to be measured, both financial and social impact. Hindi pwedeng one without the other. Rose mentioned earlier that at iba pa, the accounting firm I have focusing on social enterprises does services right now for financial accounting. But I'm also studying now. I'm enrolled in a course na naman. I'm say perennials, trying to take it level up really on impact management and measurement because I'm so close to offering it as a product already of ATBP, which is financial accounting and impact accounting. And I will show you why it's so critical to bridge both. Kasi on one hand are the enterprises and they're claiming that this is their social impact. On the other hand, you're all the funders and investors. Having the money, I've seen it, hindi problema ang pera. Ang dami, they come and say, I have $1 million to invest. Which enterprise is ready to take it? So, but how can you prove that readiness if you don't have measures to prove that you're in fact ready? And funders and investors and stakeholders, people who want to volunteer are all reliant on information coming from that enterprise. And pag wala yun, they'll probably take a chance at the start, a little blind and say, sure, I'll take a chance. Pero for recurring and sustained involvement, we really need to measure. So allow me to share my screen and show you lang a little. It's just a few slides, but I just wanted to really concretize it for you. So, why should we measure our performance and our impact? There's so many things related to it. Risk, opportunity, how we plan our resources, who we invite in. But people need data. Bakit? If change were as obvious as this, what you see on the screen, right? Chapped earth to green fields. If the change that we're after is this obvious, madali. We can just show before after, tapos na, 'di ba? Or if we were just counting, say feeding program tayo and we'll say we feed 10,000 hungry people every month and you can prove that you should at 10,000. Tapos na. So it's important to measure that, but even more important to measure ours kasi long term ang effects, ang hirap i-convince na we've actually achieved our mission. So, our challenge to measure is even deeper. So, since hindi ganito ka-obvious, we need data. Data that people can really look at and see. Kasi, why? Why the need for something for them that they can look at and we have it ready? First, we want to be transparent with all our primary stakeholders. learners, funders, partners, volunteers, our facilitators, us here. What are primary stakeholders? They're everyone who is critical in this entire value chain, critical for this to happen. One of them lang wala, hindi na mangyayari. You don't have motivated and engaged facilitators, it's not gonna happen. You don't have learners who actually finish the program and show outcomes after. It's not gonna happen. You don't have partners coming in, volunteers, investors, it's not going to happen. So primary stakeholders are every piece of that puzzle that need to be in. And in our case right now, as the model is developing, LGUs are going to start being primary stakeholders. So there has to be outcomes for each of them that will keep them in the program. There's a lot of, I'm sure you've heard this several times. Narinig nyo na to, donor fatigue, nag-donate pero napapagod na. Pati volunteers napapagod din, di ba? Kasi pag feeling mo, wala naman nangyayari, 3 taon na ako nagvo-volunteer dyan, kailangan may nakikita silang resulta. You see, outcomes para ganado ka. Partners, nagfa-fatigue din. Or there's some change. Like example, nakakuha ka ng company to fund you because the president is the contact of somebody in the group and he believes in your cause. Pero hindi ka nagpakita ng success metrics or at least real numbers. Then he retires or he gets replaced. The next guy comes in who does not have that kind of personal relationship with you, without impact metrics, gone na. Sabi niya, oh, that's not our priority. And he changes. There goes your funding. Diba? So part of addressing this is to really show what we've done in numbers that are accurate and relevant. Hindi kwento lang. Anecdotal here means, uy, may mga nag-graduate kami. Ilan? Siguro mga, ikwento ko sa'yo. Si ganito, si ganyan, si Lito, si Freddy, at si Jack, gumraduate, ganito nangyari sa kanila. Nagkwento ka 3. But if you can say, 9 out of 10 enrollees finish. Out of the 9 who finish, 8 are gainfully employed. Out of the 8 gainfully employed, 7 have the resilience to stay on and have stayed gainfully employed for the last 2 years already. And it just really helps you make your case about why funding should go to you. So we have to be able to back up claims with accurate and relevant data. Ngayon, we're at the point where we're showing our vision and it excites people. But 2-3 years down the road, when reality bites, data will help us keep and sustain the momentum. And then this is the one Rose was asking me earlier. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. Kasi, when there are problems na, you're like, teka lang, basta may problema, but you can't pinpoint. And if you cannot pinpoint, you don't know where to begin making changes, and you can't make good decisions. On the corollary, ganun din. Something is, can the participants kindly mute, please? Sorry, there's a lot of background noise. So, if you don't know where to begin making changes, you're not able to address problems. And baliktad din. If things are going well, you want to know, ano ba talagang nag-work dito para ma-replicate ko? And that's where metrics will make a big difference. So, I want, at this point, I just want to put across a difference. Kasi kanina pa, Vicky and I have been using the term outcomes, di ba? Sabi mo, ano yung outcomes na yan? At ano yung difference nun from outputs? So, ang output, panay numerical measures. Like we're saying, 5 million in 5 years. That's an output. Pwede tayo magpag-graduate ng 5 million. But an outcome is a transformative measure. Yung, what is the change in the people that we really wanted to impact? So, my visual here shows, pwedeng nangitlog ng ilan to? 8. Pero, nag-hatch ba talaga? At naging live chick na nag-transform? Yung 8? Isa lang ba? Gusto natin all. Pero how do we make sure that it's all? And how do we know that it's all? That's where metrics comes in. So we want to really track not just outputs, hala bilang lang tayo ng bilang, but outcomes. So at this point, I'll give lang a few specific examples on how we plan to do it. Okay, so what outputs and outcomes do we need to measure? These are all the primary stakeholders. Kulang pa to. May other slide and we will be getting your inputs as it goes along. Pero for example, for learners, we want to see what is the change in these people that we're trying to impact. For facilitators, we want to see how effective, how motivated are they, how happy are they. We want happy, motivated, engaged facilitators because they're the key to the learners and the transformation that we want. Our funders and our donors, how effective are we in keeping or increasing their involvement? Nawawala ba sila? Bakit? Dumadami ba? Bakit? And how effective are we in managing resources? Are we wasteful? Or are we able to show them that, oh, yung $1,000 nyo, ito ang nangyayari. Versus ang 1,000, ito lang ang nabigay. We really have to show those. For the volunteers, how we want more coming in, but we don't want them to come and go na nawa. Kasi remember, tao to, learners to, they cannot have their kapatids and kaibigans coming and going and disappearing in their lives. There has to be some stability there. And we have, the volunteers have to experience outcomes that they signed up for. Hindi pwedeng, oh, we have, 10,000 of them, pero 9,000 pala are not happy and grumbling about it, and we leave in 3 months. We have to track how sustainable and how happy they are to stay in the program. Same with the enterprise naman. Dito pumasok yung numbers. How sustainable are we? Are we already starting to become profitable that we can fund internally such that donor money will fund growth, new programs, app development rather than fund daily expenses of the program? Are we showing good returns para sulit yung investments? And of course, the big mission. Did we really achieve, or how close are we to achieving our mission? So, if you look at this slide and the previous one, makikita nyo na kung bakit ang team is composed of somebody whose area of competence is psychology, and somebody whose area of competence is finance, and Lisa, who's really an educator and a program implementer. Kasi, these are not all numbers. For us to create the change that we want, a lot of mindsets have to be broken. So, parang hindi naman, we all have our expertise, and when we meet and talk about the metrics, the mindset breaking that Vicki brings to the table and how and what to measure is very different also from what I see and what Lisa sees. So kaya parang ang weird, no? Psychology, finance, and educator na nagsama, but it's so that we could come up with metrics that really, really help our mission be attainable. So, ito, super, bilisan ko lang kasi it's just, I wanted you to see ano yung mga examples na itatrack natin. So, for example, yung sinabi ko kanina, outputs are numerical measures and outcomes are transformative measures. So, a key indicator, for example, for our learners, pinakita kanina ni Vicki, yung output nun is, syempre, di ba, right now we're there. O, ilan ang na-sign up nyo? Ilan ang nag-enroll? Tapos, ilan ang gagraduate? Yun yung lahat ng nangitlog. Ngayon, ilan doon ang magiging full-fledged, like from hatchlings to chicks to chickens to ito yung graduates na gainfully employed. Are they still gainfully employed after 1 year? Did they start a business? Are they active citizens? That's the outcome. That's the change we want to see. These are just outputs. Ilan. Pero if we want to really make a difference, we will have to look at both our outputs and our outcomes. So for facilitators, ilan sila? Ano yung feedback sa kanila? Ilan yung kanilang nagoyo na sumama. Mas madilis silang manggoyo nang sasama sa atin if they can say na, wow, these are the percentage of graduates na nag-graduate, na nagtapos versus nag-enroll lang. Mataas ang, kasi maganda ang programa. There was an increase in interested learners and facilitators. There's high retention, and we want personal growth also for the facilitators. Yung outcomes din nila, their personal outcomes, what do I want to be in this program? What kind of person do I want to grow into? We have to put all that because at the end, we want them to be effective and motivated. Growth in funder involvement. Pwede tayo mag-track. Ilan to? Ilang donors? Ilan ang nag-refer? Ano yung donation amounts? How many are recurring donors? But, ano yung outcome? Ano ngayon? If you have 1,000 donors. We had new initiatives na fund. We have additional centers that were opened. We were able to get additional 10,000 learners because of this funding. So we're really able to trace back. And then, we want engaged kapatids and kaibigans. At the start, we will be tracking ilan ba sila nag-sign up, ilan ang active. But, how do we know that it's effective? Mababa ang dropout rate ng learners. They stay long as volunteers, and they also gain personal growth as mentors. For everyone, there has to be alignment with personal growth goals. And then, as a sustainable enterprise, lahat tayo dito may KPIs, ha? So ako, i-rate nyo rin ako how well I'm managing our cash, or yung ganon, di ba? Or the finance team. Or like the marketing team. They will have KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. What's the reach? Ilan ang nag-a-apply? Kasi ang konti pala nag-a-apply kasi hindi magandang marketing natin. How will we know that they're effective? There's a high level of awareness. There's, like for example, they're doing social media engagements. Wala namang reaction. Wala namang nag-a-apply. Or pag nag-apply, tanatanong natin, how did you find out about the program? And there's nothing related to what they do. Then we know that there needs to be improvement. Pero kung lahat magsabi, uy, nakita ko sa Facebook kasi na ganito, or narinig ko from ganito, then we know that the marketing team is doing a great job. Same with the tech team. Satisfied ba sa apps? Crash ba ng crash? Or is it doing well? What's the feedback? And then the retention of the team. So each and every one of us has a role to play, and there will be indicators to know that we are all doing well. Sa finance, can our profits now sustain our operations, or forever na ba tayo donor funded? So, yun, we will be talagang very detailed in the implementation of this, and it will be across all. There's no one group lang that will be measured. It's across all. Each and every primary stakeholder group. So, we will be tracking it over 5 years or over 10 years. This is just an example, but because of our 5M and 5Y, we will be tracking it over 5 years. We will separate the tracking for pilot stage, short, medium, and long, para na itong mapapakita natin in the end. So when Rose said earlier na malaking pera ang kailangan, makakakuha ka ng $1,000, nagkwento ka ng 3 na nag-succeed. Ang kwento ni ganito, ni ganyan. Pero pag nagpakita ka ng data na ganito, 10 million, di ba? $2 million, yan ang papasok sa'yo. Pag ganito ang mapakita natin. And in the end, we have one question we need to answer. Did we achieve our mission? Did we make a difference in the lives of our primary stakeholders? And we want to know kung the real actual numbers, ilan ba talaga ang naging mula sa caterpillar na naging paru-paro? Baka naman dito namatay na nung nasa pupa at hindi naging paru-paro. Kasi this is what this caterpillar to butterfly transformation, the eggs to the hatchlings, in numbers, in solid measures, is what will keep people engaged. Donors, funders, learners, facilitators, volunteers, lahat. They will stay and the program will be alive 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when we are all retiring na, kasi may bago nang pumasok, kasi nakita talaga nila na mga caterpillar na naging paro-paro. So with that, I hope that I was able to like get people, like I know it will be like numero, pero hindi. May purpose yan. Way deeper than just what the numbers show. Thank you. Any questions? I'm
Thank you, Pink.
Yeah, thanks, Pinks and Vicky.
She has to go soon, so if you have questions, you can ask now because she has a test on their impact accounting course.
It's a social impact management and measurement course, and
Yeah.
the frameworks are fantastic. Like I have all of these dots in my head, and suddenly now the dots are becoming constellations, because of the framework. So I'm really excited to do it. I'm happy to take questions if you have, but if not, we'll proceed with the program. And I'm sure as we go along, Vicky and Lisa and I will be here for the questions that you may have. And this is not going to be one way, ha? Yun pa ang isang clarification. The three of us will really ask you and engage all
Yes.
of you here. Hindi lang the facilitators, all of you. What are the outcomes that you want to see? What brought you here? And we, kasi we have to we have to measure what matters. So we will really be asking what matters to you. And then we will work on how. But we will be engaging everybody as we develop the numbers. Kasi hindi naman kayo magsabing 90%, tapos lahat kayo, 70 lang actually ang doable. So it will really be a two-way thing. So you will be hearing from us.
Yeah.
Galing.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Yeah.
even more excited to do this. Because this is what I'm talking about, how God has prepared each and every one of us here for what we are doing. No? Kanya-kanyang expertise now
Yeah.
coming together for this. So, we will, I think Jen has a question. How
As a
often will you
question.
measure the metrics? Monthly? Starting this month na ba? Wow. Okay.
Actually, Jen, what we're planning to do nga is to really embed whatever can be embedded into the app itself na para less ang manual intervention. That's the first step. So that's why we're targeting it kasi we will feed it to the tech team kasi ang pwede na sa app na. So instead of ideally monthly, but not everything will be monthly because some of our outcomes are long term. So we will split it actually right now. It's split into four in our framework: pilot stage, then first like short term, maybe 1 to 3 years. Medium would be 3 to 5, and long term will be the 6 to 10. Parang ganon. So we will be giving it, and we will make sure that we will be pulling data. Our first priority will be with what's already there. Kaya i-build into the app. Second step will be the easy to do, like a short survey at the end, like in the learning, before they can move on to the next level, yung mga ganon. We will be building it as much as we can. So we're not going to be an army of data gatherers spending more time gathering data than doing the work. We're going to do it in such a way that a lot of it is built in. So, but yeah, Jen, we will be starting to track sa pilot stage.
Yeah. And then quickly lang, Rose,